Hi, thanks for checking out this video. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe, share it in your social media feeds. It really does make a difference. I appreciate everyone who's been checking out my videos in the recent weeks. Thank you for your support. Today, I want to talk about bookcases because we've been seeing a lot of people's bookcases during lockdown on Zoom calls. Michael Gove got into trouble because on his bookshelf there was a copy of Hitler's War by David Irving. He used to be called a historian, now he's just known as a Holocaust denier, one of the very few, if only people, to be called a liar in a libel trial by the judge. But my bookcase has got some dodgy stuff on it as well. This is in the spare room, and when people come and stay afterwards, they sometimes go to my wife, "Please don't make me stay in that room again, it's scary," or they say, "Is Adam, all right in the head?" Because pretty much all the books here are, well, war or dictators. I used to have a serial killer section over here, but they were kind of cheap paperbacks. They fell apart. So most of those are now online alongside my very questionable tastes in podcasts. And I just wanted to kind of go through these books with you. We can take a look together because books kind of have memories and things associated with them. Obviously with bookcases, people tend to try and make themselves look smarter and better than they really are. For example, by having a couple of classic titles there that have clearly been read more than once. Twice, I've read them twice. And there we can see a picture of a prostitute from the 1920s. Obviously, if this picture was, say, in the last 10 years, it would make me look like a complete pervert. But because it's black and white and old, it's kind of cool and bohemian and vintage. Now let's just take a bit of a closer look here. You see I've got some titles there. I've got a kind of nice relaxing book there about the Inquisition. Not very enlightened people. It's more or less chronological. We've got World War I here, and then it goes into World War II and Vietnam. World War II, obviously one of the very few sequels that was actually better than the first, as well as, like, say, Hellboy 2 and Empire Strikes Back. There's some interesting here, for example, Gallipoli. This, not the film of Gallipoli, includes Mel Gibson. That was back in the good old days when he didn't sort of do drunken racist rants. In this film, he ran a lot, and that was a good part of that film. This book here, Leningrad, about the siege of Leningrad in 1941 to 1944, it does go on a bit. I'll be honest with you, a bit like the siege. Now, this is a good one. This is a paperback which was published in 1938, which lays out exactly what Hitler was going to do. Which, when you read this, is kind of interesting when you read all the academic historians saying there was no way anybody could have predicted what Hitler was going to do. There's a film, this book called Stalingrad by Anthony Beevor. It's fantastic. A lot of people have read it. There was a film called Stalingrad, which I tricked my wife into watching. She was quite depressed, and I said, "You know what you should do? You should watch Stalingrad." And she agreed. And then about 1 hour, 45 minutes in, it was absolutely harrowing and it was totally miserable. And she said, "I don't think I can take any more." And obviously the funny part for her really was me telling her that was the upbeat part, and it got more depressing from that point onwards. But this is a very good book. I've got some other, this is noteworthy titles here. We see Berlin. If you've seen the film Downfall, it details the events of the end of the Third Reich, the assault on Hitler's bunker. Now the subject of very funny memes. So there's no memes in this. It's just words. A couple of pictures as well. Now this book, very interesting. This is interviews with German generals who were held at a POW camp from about 1943 onwards, those that were captured, and they were also covertly recorded by their captors. And the general conclusion was of the generals that they had nothing to do with all the bad stuff, and if only Hitler had followed their advice, everything would turn out completely differently, and really they can't be held responsible in any way for any of the mistakes. And of course there's no comparisons today with people claiming hindsight after the event despite having supported policies all along. So there's no parallels there whatsoever. You can use that analogy for whatever your political affiliations are. Works both ways. Then this is really the dictator section. This is the one that people find most scary. I do have a lot of books there on Nazis. As you can see, I've read all of them many times, apart from this one. This one here, Nazi Women. I haven't read this book, perhaps because I'm sexist. I don't know. Perhaps it's like women's football that has in fact proved to be very popular, and maybe I should read Nazi Women and accept that women can be just as good a Nazi as men. I say good Nazi, I mean, well, bad Nazi, but you know what I mean. So perhaps that's a book I should be reading. Here we've got the 2-volume Hitler biography by Ian Kershaw. I mean, if you're a bit of a novice for Hitler, maybe you want to try the single volume. Oh, spoiler alert about Hitler. He does die at the end. So, sorry to break that to you. I do also here have a copy of Mein Kampf, which was given to me by a friend as a gift, who said, I thought you would like that, which, now that I say it out loud, does make it sound worse. Right. Then down here we move into the Soviet dictator section. Here we've got this book, very popular book by Orlando Figes, was People's Tragedy. He was my tutor at Cambridge. I had a huge argument with him where I refused to come to a seminar because it was boring, and I got in trouble and I left his study group. But the interesting part to that story, the interesting coda to that story, is about 5 years ago, he was exposed as having written fake reviews of his rival historians on Amazon. So perhaps I'm the better person. There's a book, for example, by his rival, Anne Applebaum, excellent title. She has not, to my knowledge, published any fake reviews of rival authors. Then we move down here and we've got the Mao section. It's controversial, you could say. Is Mao one of the worst dictators ever lived? Obviously only controversial in a context of the 5 billion people who are not subject to the totalitarian government of the Chinese Communist Party recognise him as a genocidal maniac. But if you live in China, he was a great visionary. So bit of controversy there. What else do we have? Oh yes, now, if you want to get into dictators, because it can be quite intimidating, thinking, oh, it's a lot of books to read. I mean, you know, lockdown will be ending soon. I would recommend considering Pol Pot as a very good introductory dictator. Crazy name, crazy guy. Not the same, numbers as Stalin or Mao or Hitler, but then you have to look at what he was working with, and actually percentages are really important in assessing just how crazy he was. And it's really a question of making the most or the worst of what you have. Also, the good thing about, the bad thing about Pol Pot is that you can read about 8 books and become an expert on it. So it's a bit like, as you found recently in the last couple of months, lots of arts-educated journalists who know nothing about virology or epidemiology have suddenly decided that they know better than the experts.